What exactly is the new low-impact green habitat policy introduced by the Punjab government?
First of all, I would really like to thank the state government of Punjab for creating this new policy, which is the low impact green habitat policy. This policy has been made for the delisted areas in Punjab, which primarily are in the districts of Mohali, Ropar, Hoshiarpur, Nawashahar, Pathankot and Gurdaspur. So this policy will open up a lot of delisted areas where the existing farmhouses or structures can get regularized, and also at the same time new approvals would be granted by the government. In this manner, a lot of land which could not be put to any use and was currently only being used for agricultural purposes, but now there can be a productive use that can happen. So this is a really good and a welcome step and really appreciate it. So with this, there is these low impact only ground plus one houses oblique farmhouses that can be constructed on 10% of the area.
Why was the low-impact green habitat policy created, and what kind of development does it allow?
The low impact green habitat policy was created for sustainable development to take place in an environment friendly way and opening of these delisted areas in Punjab for use, but without impacting the environment in any adverse manner. So some of the initiatives that have been taken is in form of the kind of construction that can be done, which is minimal, only ground plus one, and only 10% area can be constructed upon, provided you have 4,000 square yards of plot size. Another feature that has been incorporated is that you can only do indigenous tree plantation, so that the variety of trees that are planted are not ornamental in nature, but they are native and indigenous to the area. The ground coverage is restricted, the height is restricted in ground plus one, the total area that can be built up is only 10%. So all those factors have already been incorporated in that, so that the development that takes place is minimal, but at the same time sustainable and balanced approach is taken.
How does low-impact green habitat change real estate norms from the earlier requirement of 2.5 acres to now 4,000 square yards?
Well, the impact of this change is twofold. One, that the area requirement has reduced from 2.5 acres to 4,000 square yards. So it will become far more affordable for a lot more people. So accordingly, a larger group of individuals would be able to afford to buy a unit and create this kind of setup for themselves and for their families. The second is that a large number of villages where the approval under the 2.5 acre policy was not being given at all. But now, since these permissions are allowed on delisted land, so a lot of villages where the permissions earlier were not given up are now open for development under this policy. Accordingly, the prices, what I feel, in those villages where earlier permissions were not being given would go up, and the prices in the villages where the permissions were being given earlier may come down to some extent, as there would be a balancing direction or a balancing approach that would happen.
Which surrounding areas are impacted by this new policy, and what is the criteria for these zones?
The entire Shivalik range is impacted by this policy because the areas which were notified earlier under Punjab Land Preservation Act and areas that got delisted fall in the villages in this area. There are total 6 districts of Punjab, right from Mohali district, Ropar, Nawashahar, Hoshiarpur, Pathankot and Gurdaspur. And there are 470 villages in these 6 districts that will be impacted by this policy.
Which specific villages in Mohali district fall under the affected or regulated zones?
When we talk about Mohali district, the villages that now will come and would be covered under this policy are Karoran, Nada, Seok, Parch, Choti Badi Naggal, Padol, Siswa, Palanpur, Majra, Sultanpur, Dulwa, to name a few. There could be a few others that I may have missed, but largely these are the main villages where this policy would allow for these habitats to be created, and these are the villages where earlier one could not build the farmhouses under the existing farmhouse policy. There would be a lot of growth that may happen in these villages by creating these sustainable habitats there.
How has this policy influenced property appreciation rates in these areas? Have rates gone upward or downward?
The prices in these villages which have opened up for creating these habitats would definitely go up and have started to see the surge. The reason being that people want approved product and they want to be able to get the approvals from the government. Accordingly, now since these approvals would take place under this policy, so the prices are moving upward in these villages. As I said before, the prices in the villages where permissions could be obtained earlier, either under the country home policy or alternatively under the farmhouse policy, would see some downward trend.
What happens to the villages like Karoran and Nada under this new policy?
Well, I would say that the villages Karoran and Nada are uniquely positioned compared to all other villages of Mohali district. The main reason for that is, one, of course, they become open for these habitats like other villages that have opened up. Second is the proximity to Chandigarh. These two villages are in the closest proximity to Chandigarh. Hence, that is the second advantage. The third very important aspect is that in these two villages, the conditions of no commercial activity already stand quashed by way of a writ that was filed in the High Court. Accordingly, the persons who create these habitats in village Karoran and Nada would be able to use their cottages for farmstay, homestay, or boutique resorts or ecotourism resorts in that kind of a way and manner. So the conditions that are applicable under this policy in all other villages are not applicable in village Karoran and Nada. This is a huge advantage for people investing in these two villages.
What are the benefits and advantages for residents currently living in Karoran and Nada, also in the nearby places?
Well, the residents of these villages would definitely be impacted in a positive manner by this. The reason being that whatever sustainable development will take place in this area would generate employment for the residents of these villages and at the same time create opportunities for them to become stakeholders in the development, as this would also encourage the local materials for construction being used, and the contractors, the petty contractors would also get work, whether it is for masonry work, for wood work, or for any other work that would be required to be done in creation of these habitats.
How does the low impact green habitat policy impact existing ecotourism properties and nature-based developments?
Well, really speaking, this policy does not impact the ecotourism or nature-based projects because this policy has strictly been made for self-use by individuals and no other usage is permitted under the same. So business-wise, it will not have any impact because the individuals would only be able to use it for themselves or for their families to be able to create second or third home outside of the city where they want to spend the weekends or evenings or whatever. So it would really not have any impact in any way business-wise on any of the existing projects which are offering those services.
What does this mean for Forest Hill Resort and the Farmstay or residential projects located around the same region?
Well, Forest Hill Resort is located in village Karoran and is uniquely positioned, as I explained, in way of the conditions not being applicable of no commercial activity in village Karoran and Nada. They were quashed by filing a writ in the High Court by the residents of the area. So accordingly, Forest Hill Resort, which is already an operational resort, an eco resort, and also the other farmstay projects operating in the vicinity would benefit from this because there would be a lot of people that would look at buying land in and surrounding area to create this low impact habitat, green habitats for themselves. So this would generate a lot of interest of people wanting such a second home in this area, and they would definitely be looking at using the services that are available at Forest Hill Resort, whether in form of golf, riding, hiking, biking, boating, off-roading, and probably 30 other activities that exist at the resort itself.
How does this policy aim to balance controlled development with environmental protection in these zones?
While creating this policy, I think a lot of emphasis has been laid on sustainable development and also the construction typology, as well as the kind of plantation and landscape that can be done. So as I explained before, some of those important features are limited ground coverage, which is restricted to 10%, only two-story construction, use of indigenous and native plantation, and also in terms of slope management, solar heating, water harvesting, water recharging, and all other environment and preservation related aspects have been built into the policy to ensure that it remains an eco-friendly policy, and the creation of these habitats are also eco-friendly. So I think it's a good policy that has been drafted, and it has been done in a well thought out manner.